Hello everyone, Opera SM here with a Teferi cycling deck built around Kefnet, the God Eternal, as the engine card. So we've been experimenting with a lot of different versions of cycling decks. A lot of them were using Escape Protocol. This one is using something else for Mana Engine, which is God Eternal Kefnet. So he's a 6/7 flying legendary zombie for 17. When you would draw a spell, copy that card. That card gains half its mana. When this creature is exiled or dies, if 3 or more cards named God Eternal Kefnet are in your graveyard, return it to the battlefield, then reinforce it 3 times, and exile all cards named God Eternal Kefnet from your graveyard. The main reason that we have this in here is for the first ability, that whenever you draw a spell, copy that card and it gets half its mana. So we're running 6 other spells in this deck, so this is our mana engine, where when we are cycling, we'll get a card from cycling, and then when we draw a spell, we get to copy it. So it kind of gets us two cards that way, as a card advantage engine and as a cycling engine. This pairs really well, since we're drawing 2 cards every time that happens, with Serum Powder, because we use it for the overflow ability of when it enters your hand. If you have 5 or more cards in your hand, you exile it and then discard all cards without mana from your hand, then draw that many cards. Those cards gain half mana. This is awesome with Kefnet, because we're going to be drawing a card, and then so we have 1 card we draw without mana, 1 that gets copied with mana, and then when we eventually cycle stuff away and draw into Serum Powder, all the cards that are in our hand without mana will be exiled away and then get in with half mana, giving us more mana to be able to continue cycling stuff away. And actually how the interaction with God Eternal Kefnet, having the card gain half mana and then Serum Powder giving it half mana, actually cards that have an even mana cost will get full mana with this. So that's pretty cool. So let's get to some of the rest of the deck with that engine online. We've got, I believe, 7 cycling cards in this deck. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Ominous Seas we have in here. When you draw a card, you reinforce this support. Then at the end of your turn, if it has 9 or more reinforcement, it loses its reinforcements, and it creates an 8/8 hexproof Kraken, which is pretty cool. And it has cycling too, so this can be a good damage source. Unlike some of the Escape Protocol decks where you need to exile your last creature and you need to make sure that you're building off of flickering, God Eternal Kefnet lets you build up and have other creatures left on the board. So even things that would go into the last slot, like Ominous Seas, don't matter. Kefnet gives you a little more flexibility in how you build. Boon of Wishes is a very important card in this deck. It's a spell for 9 with drawing 4 cards, but it has cycling too as well. As we'll get to it, we have Stitch in Time in this deck, and then when you have extra turns, you can then, once you run out of extra turns, you just exile all the other cards in your hand away except for Boon. Then you can cast Boon, draw 4 cards, 2 or 3 of them, 1, 2, or 3 of them may get some extra mana, and then you can start cycling again. So this is a restart switch, also to help you find your combo pieces if you draw it early. Neutralize has cycling 3, drains mana from your opponent's first card, but mainly just there for cycling. I have it there because higher mana cost spells, so you get more mana off of Kefnet, are better when you're cycling. Will of the Hunt, a cycling 2 card for 7. Startling Development, cycling 2 card for 6. And Stitch in Time. When I was playing more defensive versions of this deck, Zenith Flare can also work if you just want to be able to kill something and gain a lot of life to stay alive. But if you're trying to just combo and keep going, Stitch in Time actually worked really well, because you gain extra swaps, and then if you can ever get it so you can gain multiple extra swaps, you can do some pretty cool things with this deck. Flourishing Fox has a cycling 2 spell for 5, and a creature that when it's on the board can actually get pumped up pretty well. Is another damage source I'm running, as well as Frostveil Ambush. I'm running these 2 cards because I don't have these cards. Shabraz, it's an exclusive, you could buy it, but when it's available I'm crafting it. But Shabraz, I think, is going to be a fantastic damage source to cut down clocks, because when you create the Braylon Shark Rider token, It's a legendary red legendary human shaman support. Um, that when it's on the board, your shark creatures get +2/+0 and gain trample. But the importantly is when you cycle or discard another card, deal 2 damage to your opponent's planeswalker. Then your first creature gets +1/+1. So this deals 2 damage every time you cycle, and then it will pump up your human creatures, which which you may or may not have. I don't remember if you do or not in the deck, but it's mainly there for just the deal 2 damage when you cycle stuff. And then Channeled Force would also be one that I would run. It's an expensive, one of the more expensive spells you can with cycling, so it has cycling 3, but then its ability of discard all cards without mana from your hand, then draw X cards and deal X damage to target opposing creature. X is the number of cards discarded this way, is very synergistic with this strategy, because again, kind of like Serum Powder, what we want to do is get rid of cards that don't have mana, and then we would draw into other spells, which would then get half mana off of copied half mana off of God Pharaoh, God Eternal Kefnet, whatever the hell he's called. I can't even think right now. God Eternal Kefnet. And also the discard of Channeled Force and Serum Powder would also synergize with the Shabraz token if you have it, because if you noticed, it said when you cycle or discard another card. So that's why I think Shabraz is just going to be fantastic when he's available. I don't have the budget to be able to pay the 30 or whatever it is for him now, but I think he's going to be very, very good in cycling. So again, we'll get rid of those guys because I don't have them, and then I'm going to just run a sample game here with you. So again, we're using Teferi. His draw 4 cards and gain an extra swap can actually be pretty decent in this deck. I've used it a lot. His first ability, if you just need to buy a little time, can work, but mainly his ultimate, if you get up to that, whenever you draw a card, your opponent loses a reinforcement. If they can't, they exile a creature. If they can't, exile a support. If they can't, all their mana, all the cards in their hand are taxed by 1, or the cost increases. So he's very good with that. He's got pretty good mana gains as well. So let's go ahead and give this a run in Training Grounds. I have 58 minutes left, so again, I'll probably only run this one version of this because it takes a little while to play. Hopefully I'll have time to play my 4th match in there because I have 2 remaining, but I wanted to record this while I'm thinking about it and show you all how it works. Janus and Lars, quite a few other folks are playing around with different versions of cycling decks as well on the From the Ashes Slack, so it's been really fun kind of brainstorming and talking about different ways to approach some of these things. Some of them are doing cool things like all the glitters or other pump spells. All the glitters is actually pretty cool with the Ominous Seas, just because it's going to grow pretty big and it would pump your creatures up. So if you're looking to kill quickly, I was just looking for some consistent ways to keep going and cycle a lot. So this is actually a fantastic starting hand. I'm debating whether I want to try to get Kefnet down first or the Omen or the God Pharaoh, God Eternal Kefnet. Not 100% certain what I want to do. It's a loud birds that are sitting in some fountains next to me. Let's see. So we can get black into white, which would be pretty decent, I think. We can get black into white several different ways. I'm trying to see if one is better than the other. I think the one on the second row would be better than the one on the second column, better than the third row, because it would allow me to potentially get a blue match as well. Yeah, I'm not sure, because Omen of the Seas I do want to get down to start dealing some damage as I'm cycling stuff away, but I think I'd rather get God Eternal Kefnet down first so I get mana to actually play things. So we're going to go ahead and do that first. He's going to get a red and a blue. Yeah, that would have been good for me. Yeah, he's going to get a lot of mana, but that's okay. Alright. Alright, let's see if we can get a blue match, which is pretty good here. Red match. Black into a white match. Green into a black into a white is probably going to be our best, so I think that's the route I'm going to take. Great, so and we drew into a spell, that's wonderful. I have a Kefnet on the board, so I'm going to exile the other one. Maybe I should have kept it in hand one more turn, but I actually want to be able to draw into card 4 and potentially copy card 5. So now I'm going to try to get Ominous Seas on the board and then start cycling stuff away to start pumping stuff up with Ominous Seas. So let's see, I have some options, several different options for blue matches. I could get a blue potentially into 2 different green matches or a loyalty match. That's looking pretty nice. I think that's probably going to be our best option that I'm seeing here, and I won't take forever. Alright, what is this? This is the Cavalier, the blue Cavalier? No, cast Dissonant Mage. So when you cast a spell, exile it at the beginning of his turn. Guess you would basically flashback his first spell. Alright. Yeah, let's see. I'm debating here actually if I just want to take one extra turn and just get Fox down, because that will actually start adding to the cycling clock quite a bit. So I think that's actually what I'm going to do. Nope, don't want to cast that. Forgot that one had flash. Great, and we get another copied spell, so we got quite a bit of mana here. So basically now, as we are cycling, when we draw into a spell, we're going to get a copied card. So eventually that's going to mean we're going to have 5 cards in hand when we cycle something away, and then we're going to draw into the 6th card and not get to copy it. So at this point, really, most of the spells, the non-cycling cards that we get, once they get added to our hand, we're probably going to want to exile them almost immediately, because then that will get us down to 4 cards when we cycle, so we'll be able to get a copy and get extra mana. So this deck is pretty exile hand intensive, not only exiling the cycling cards, but clearing space in your hand to be able to cast some of these other spells as well. So we're just going to start going through here, and we'll notice that every time that I do cycle, I'm going to get a +1/+1 counter on Fox. I am also going to reinforce Ominous Seas and hopefully start getting some 8/8 Krakens as well. So we're going to start cycling away cards with cycling 2. Great, we drew into another spell. That's great. And we'll notice that Neutralize gives us 4 mana onto the card, where something like Will of the All Hunter would round down, so it would only give us 3. It does cost more to cycle it away, but when we copy it, Will of the All Hunter would get 6 mana, and the copy or the copied spell. I'll show you once we have Serum Powder. It's confusing to try to talk about right now. So what we're going to do is keep cycling. Great, and we drew a Serum Powder, so this is wonderful. So we're going to use the Overflow ability to exile our cards, or to discard our cards from hand without mana, and then we're going to draw that many cards and they gain half mana. So that's wonderful. We got rid of 3 cards. Great, startling development. Now we get a copy of it. You'll see that we got half mana, and then Kefnet applied its mana. So we actually got 3 mana plus 3 mana for the startling development copy, and then the original one that we drew got half mana. So that's some pretty great advantage. We got a card and a half worth of mana. So we have a lot of mana in hand now. So as I mentioned, if we went to go cycle a card away in hand, what I would do is cycle away the Frost Veil Ambush, because it has cycling 3, whereas something like the Startled Development only has cycling 2. So if we can net mana sometimes off of cycling in the right order, it would be good. But if we would cycle away the Frost Veil Ambush, that would be 5 cards left in hand. If we drew another spell, that would make it so we would not actually get copied mana. So even though God Kefnet Eternal has 8 mana on it, I think what I'm going to do right now actually is just exile it. Not sure if that's exactly right, but that's what I'm going to do right now, just as I was talking about making room and making space. So now that I have 5 cards left in hand, well, that has cycling anyway. So what I'm going to do is just cycle away, trying to prioritize taking mana off the 2 mana cycling cards right now, so I have more mana to continue cycling. So this is another cycling 2 that we're draining mana off of another cycling 2. And we'll keep cycling. Hopefully we'll draw into another Serum Powder. That's great. Great, and we got a Boon of Wishes, which is wonderful. So again, and now since Boon was an odd casting cost card, you'll notice that it cost 9, so we got 4 mana on the original one, and then we got 4 plus another 4 onto Boon, which is 8. So not quite its total cost, but 1 away from its total cost. Whereas if it was an even card, we get half, then half plus half it would be full, because it will be because it rounds down when something is not exactly divisible by the card's casting cost. So this is great. What we're going to do is probably hang on to this Boon of Wishes, so that way if we get extra swaps, what we can do is then when we run out of mana eventually, just cast this Boon of Wishes and be able to draw back up to a bunch of things. So we'll see how that works a little bit later. I think I'm going to get rid of some of these neutralizes right now. What we'll do is cycle this Frostveil Ambush, and you'll see now that what we're doing is we are not netting mana because we have 6 cards in hand when we draw this card, so we're not getting the copied card. So what we're going to do is keep cycling, and then eventually we'll draw into a non-cycler and exile it from our hand. Then we'll be able to start netting mana again. Okay, there's a Stitch in Time. So what we're going to do, as I mentioned before, is since it has non-cycling, we can exile it from our hand, go back to 5. Now what's going to happen is when we cycle this card away, we're going to go up to 5 cards now instead of back to 6, and then we'll have room for a copy if it was a spell card. And it was not a spell card there, it was just a fox, but that's fine. We're still playing to our odds here. Serum Powder, yes. Great, got another copy. Great, so we're getting some netted mana here. And then eventually we'll have multiple cards in our hand that we'll be able to exile. And then that will allow us at that point, to discard and then draw again to when we're wheeling away stuff. So that will allow us to net even more mana. And the goal is to, as we're cycling through, you see our fox is getting big to attack, then we're going to get a Kraken here. But the goal is to have a turn where we end up drawing into a Stitch in Time. And if we draw into a Stitch in Time and can get a copy of it, we'll have one with full mana and then one with half mana. Then all we need to do is find a match that will give us 5 mana, which we can get on this board with the middle column. We could get a green, 3 green into 3 white, and that would allow us to get 2 extra swaps. And actually, since we have red, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 red made gems on the board, that would actually give us 4 extra swaps. And then that gives us a lot of time to match and do a lot of things and start kind of going off. It's not as crazy as 1000-Year Storm Infinite turns, but it does start to do some pretty cool things. Great, there's a Serum Powder, so it lets us draw some extra stuff. All right. Good, there's a copied card. There's a Stitch. So again, we're going to exile our non-cycling card away, so now we'll have enough space so we can, if we cycle into a card with mana, then we can or cycle into a spell, then we can get a copy with mana, like that. Perfect. There's a Fox. Stitch. We're going to exile the Stitch away, so Stitch for Kefnets. I haven't drawn a Kefnet in a long time, actually. That's interesting. So I think what I'm going to do actually is try to, it's one more mana, but what I'm going to try to do is have cards, if I have cards stuck in hand, try to get multiple cards without mana on them stuck. And then that way they'll be able to discard and then draw new ones there to increase our efficiency of discarding cards and being able to draw into other stuff. Sorry, my words might not be working very well. It's been a tough couple days for me recently, but this is a good outlet to put some positivity into the world. Great, so there's a Kefnet. And again, our Fox is getting pretty big. It's not the fastest version, but this guy can actually grow to pretty big sizes. So we'll go ahead and get rid of Kefnet here. Boon cost 9, so we'll cycle it away because that's just enough mana as what's left on the card. Drew into a Stitch. Great. So what we're going to do, we'll get rid of the non-maned Stitch. And then what I'm going to want to do in this sort of case is, since I have a non-cycling card with mana on it, what I want to do is try to get the mana off it as quickly as possible, so I'm using that mana, but as soon as the mana is used up from cycling, so I'm not wasting that mana from the resources, then I'm going to exile it from my hand as soon as I can. This works great, because then Fox can exile that away. And actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to wait one more turn, because I don't want to exile down to 4, because then if I draw a non-spell card and it is Serum Powder, then I will not be able to actually sorry, English Bryce, not be able to exile stuff away, because I need 5 or more cards in hand to trigger the overflow ability. So we'll go ahead and exile away this Frostveil Ambush. And great, there's a Serum Powder, and that's exactly why we didn't do that, because now we're able to discard 4 cards from our hand and then draw into other stuff. Yes, and here's the situation I was talking about. Perfect. So we drew into a Stitch, and that one got half mana, and then the copied mana got half mana and another half mana. So now we have a Stitch in Time with full mana on it, and then one with half mana. So again, with the board that we have in 11 red gems, I'm going to get 2 + 2 turns when I want to cast these, and then that's going to allow us to just then start making a whole lot of cool things. And then more importantly, it just allows us, so if we run out of mana fizzling, which you will sometimes, then we'll get to cast one of these boon of the Witch Givers, and with that we will then be able to basically draw back up to probably a full 6 cards in hands, multiple with mana, and then start netting some mana. Right. We're going to move this up there to start using that mana if we need it. So again, a lot of manipulation if you're really trying to maximize, which you need to be doing, the amount of mana that you have. So in this situation, you saw that we drew Serum Powder, but it's not going to trigger really because we don't have any other cards that we would want to discard. Get rid of it to make room for more things. So again, Fox is not the fastest kill version here, but it's what I have. So even if you just have, even if you don't have a lot of the new cycling cards, Fox as a common is actually a pretty potent win con if you've got serious ways to keep cycling. And I may be handicapping myself a little bit by keeping the stitches in hand. But I have mana, so I'll show you what I do once we run out of mana for the loop. Eternal Kefnet. There's a Serum Powder, that's great. And yeah, Serum Powder is such a good mana engine in this deck. I love it. Because that just netted us 9 mana, which is awesome. So what I'm actually going to do is we could probably keep cycling and cycling and then, get it so we would be able to kill our opponent next turn if there's a way to give haste or something. That could be a way to actually win earlier. Or if you had against Shabraz, since it drains to a turn, you could actually win the turn you start going off with it. But what I'm probably going to do is just show you what you could do with this loop. If you have extra swaps and you run out of mana, when we can get to that point. So what I'm actually going to do is do some suboptimal matching here a little bit to try to just drain some mana. Actually, it doesn't matter. What I'm just going to do, because I need to see, I just need to finish this match. So I'll just show you in theory what one can do here with this situation. So what we do is we're going to go ahead and make a swap and get extra matches here. So we should have 4 extra swaps. So then at this point, what we could do is pretend we're cycling a bunch and then we run out of mana. What we would do at that point is just when we run out of mana and pretend we had 4 extra swaps or even 2 extra swaps, what you can do is then have Boon of the Wishgiver, exile everything but that away from your hand, cast it, draw 4 cards, which likely some of those will be spells, so you'll get copies of stuff with mana, and then you can start the cycling loop again. So that is what you would do in that situation. So I think what I'm going to do here, just to get this game over with, since I have quite a bit of damage on the board, is just make some swaps and finish this matchup. Yeah, so this shows how this deck works. You saw that we got the copy, or the token. Not now. That we got the token, and now what we'll go ahead and do is just attack for the win here. So yeah, this is the cycling deck. Hope that was a little helpful. Sorry, I know I was a little rambly here, but a little helpful showing how a Kefnet shell of cycling can work, and the cool thing you can do to get extra swaps with the combination of Kefnet and Serum powder interacting together. All right, take care, everyone.